my blood tests came back, and he asked me to come in. So he says to me, your blood tests came back and your testosterone is high. It's in the ranges of what a man's testosterone level would be. After my high testosterone level, I got my karyotype done. My karyotype was indeed 46XY, so meaning I've got like the karyotype of a male.
A male. So I just want us to, I think firstly, like minus the fact that you were in Miss Mamelodi Sundowns.
Yeah.
Well, you won Miss Sundowns in 2016, eh?
Well, it was 16, but I was reigning in 17.
Yes. And then Miss South Africa top 5 finalist 2016 as well.
Yeah.
Actually,
it was the whole competition took place in 2015, but the crowning was in 16. Yeah.
Okay, so you're actually the year after me, because Miss Sundowns and Miss SA, it was 2015 for me.
Ah, okay.
Yes, Miss Sharon Rose.
Hello.
You know what? I didn't know about your story because you hadn't shared it even with Miss South Africa, and I didn't know. So I wonder, first of all, how did you find out that you were, and correct me if I'm using this incorrectly, that you were born intersex?
So you're using it correctly. So I found out in. Sorry, let me pause my washing machine because it's going to annoy me.
It's okay. Okay. Yes. So from the beginning?
From the beginning. So, I mean, well, I think to give you a bit of context, I mean, when I was born and when I was growing up, I never ever wondered that I could be different. So, I mean, I looked like a typical girl. I was interested in typical girl things. And I mean, I would say, I mean, in retrospect, I was a bit of a late developer. Like, when, in the sense that when my friends started getting their breasts in like primary school, I was still flat chested in like grade 8, you know?
Girl.
So, I mean, I remember my breasts started really coming in grade 9. I think I started only wearing like a 32A bra in probably like late grade 9, early grade 10. But before that, I used to just wear like vests, you know? So at least I could feel covered.
Covered, you know, yes, like your other peers.
Yes, you know, so so that was it. And then I think I remember one of my friends who got her periods first got it when we were in grade 2, which was quite early, right?
In grade 2, okay.
She was like 9, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, like grade 2, grade 3, but she got her period quite early. So that was like one of the early ones. And you know, once starts, everybody starts.
Oh, yeah, it like, yeah, it all, yeah.
And I remember how my friend, one of my other friends in primary school, who we were in grade 7 at this time, and she got her period. She said she was like not feeling well, and then she went to the bathroom, and then she looked, and then oh my goodness, she was bleeding, and then that's how she got her period. I was like, sure, how lucky must she be? Because you know, sometimes like you get your period at school and everything. So for me, like it was like it was a whole waiting all the time. I was like waiting and waiting.
Which is normal because we all start at different times. I mean, I started when I was like 15 as well, 15 going on 16.
Yes. So for me then it was like, I think a lot of my friends were now having their periods and I wasn't having my period. And my mom, being a nurse, she wasn't alarmed. I mean, I was a skinny child, so she was
Yeah.
like, no, you need fat to actually like fat is an essential part of like your body's processes. So if it's not there, something tend to be delayed. And when I read up on it, I remember reading something to that effect, and I was like, okay, so you don't worry. So I mean, I was like quite a skinny child. Like
Yeah.
my BMI was like 18, 19, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
Not that that's a measure of anything, but I mean, I remember there was a time in English class where we had to do our BMI exercises. It was, I think, in biology. And for me, it said I'm anorexic. And I'm like, but guys, look at
No.
me. But I'm not
Not
anorexic, you know?
anorexic. I don't believe in
I'm
BMI, by the way. Like,
yes, yes.
yeah.
I mean, it's a faulty measure. I mean, all it does is
Yes.
just your weight according to your height, but you know,
Mm.
like that kind of guideline. But yeah, so then it just wasn't happening. And I remember in anticipation, I would carry a pad around, you know? You carry a pad around, just
Yeah.
like, oh,
I know. I
yes.
know.
I mean, I've carried my pad so much around to the point where if my friends would get caught out, I'd give them my pad.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then restock.
that happened so many times.
Uh,
I think about maybe probably 2, 3 times that I had to give my friends my pad. So yeah, and I would just get home, get another one, and never really worried. I remember my one friend would kind of ask me like, "Why don't you get your period?" And I was like, "No, whatever." I mean, she's like, "Have you been to the doctor? Have you tried to find out
how old were
why?"
you at that time?
I think by this time, I was like in probably grade 11, grade 12.
Okay. So like
Yeah,
17, 18.
like 16, 17.
Mm.
So then she was just like, but why? And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know. So anyway, fine. So I think I got to a point where I started lying because I got so tired of telling people like, oh no, you know, probably it could be this, it could be that. I haven't gone to the doctor and having to ask two people, why haven't I gone to the doctor, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
I
like you're
didn't feel the
hiding something. Mm.
yes, I didn't feel the need to, but I also got tired of explaining myself. So I was like,
Mm.
ah, man, let me lie. But I was like, I don't want to get caught out in a lie. So I'll just say that it's not painful. Like, you know,
Oh,
like how,
okay. Yes.
because I mean, then sometimes a person would be like, not,
Have
you
no
know,
period pains. Yes.
yes.
Uh,
I remember the one time, funny enough, in retrospect, you get all these flashbacks of like little moments where you kind of like, that was something. I remember one time there was this one guy who said to me, you are always happy. I'm like, thanks. He's like, yeah, like literally, like, I have never seen you like upset, angry, irritable. Like, you are always happy, you
happy.
know? And for
Yeah.
him, it didn't make sense. And probably maybe like with some of the other girls when they were on their period, they were not like in the best of moods and,
I
you
t-
know, like just like,
oh,
oh,
from that perspective,
yes, you know, like with some girls when it's just that time of the month and then they just,
they're
whereas
moody
ray of sunshine,
all the
hello,
time.
oh, 24/7, 365. And he was like, honestly, like you're always happy. But then at that time I was just like, no, I'm a very happy
Yeah,
chap.
I'm just a happy person.
I know. So fine. And then I got tired of just explaining myself and then I started lying, but I said they're not painful. So then I remember then in varsity, I was like full on. And I mean, in first year, I was staying in Rays. So you just,
Mm.
and thank goodness, I didn't have to share a room.
Yo,
I was
yeah,
allocated. I was allocated a single room. So I think for me, that was like also a good thing
a
for me.
blessing. Yeah.
Missing. So that was first year. Then Ahmed. But I remember my best friend knew at the time that I didn't get my period.
Your
And
period.
that was, and then 2011, no, I found out when I was 21. Yes, I found out when I was 21. So it was 2012.
Mm.
So 2012, I'm back at varsity. It's like October recess. And I had said to myself, okay, you know what? This is the year that I officially find out what's happening.
Yeah.
What
What's going on?
I booked an appointment with my mom's gynecologist. Lovely old man, Dr. Lebete. Love him to bits. And it was a bit weird going to my mom's gynecologist, but I
Yeah.
was like, and I think it was more weird that he's my mom's gynecologist than the fact that he was a man, you know?
Yes.
But I think I trusted my mom, so I trusted him. And I was just like, no, let me just go. So I went to my mom's gynecologist, and yeah, so it's the run of the mill thing, first consultation. Hi, how can I help you? I'm like, what? I'm 21 now. I've never gotten my period. So I just want to find out why.
Why?
And I think up to all this time, I've done my research, and I've also done. I did biology in high school. I did genetics. I did a biological science degree at school. So for me, I always kind of had an idea of what's going on up until puberty and how your body goes into puberty and meiosis and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was quite aware of
Yes,
what.
you're well versed.
And I mean, I would read up on amenorrhea, like if ever you haven't had your period, and the causes that could result from amenorrhea. And I remember the other time it would be an imperforated hymen, other time it would be like a hormonal imbalance, and some other time it could be delayed or whatever. So for me, I was just thinking, this doctor is gonna come and tell me, no, we need to do a surgery, or we just cut your hymen.
Yeah. Never the result that was gonna come.
Yes.
Yes.
And I remember, and the other thing is that you become so curious that this is like a graphic content warning.
Okay.
Start doing like self-examinations to feel like, okay, what's going up
Up there, seriously.
Just so curious. And for me, and I mean, obviously, because you've got nothing to compare it to, that becomes the norm.
Yeah.
I remember the one time I was even looking at my aunt walked into the room when I had my legs up in the air and I was looking at the mirror because I was trying to see. It's just those funny moments that I laugh at.
Yeah.
But shame, I think it was just me like trying to understand my body, trying to understand what's going on.
Yes.
Then I went to the doctor, and so he did a physical exam. So he got this like put a condom over like a little stick, and then did a whole I think it's an ultrasonic exam that you stick into the vagina, and then he did the one over my belly, and then he just palpated, and he's just like, so funny enough, in that moment he wasn't like okay, he's just like very professional and just like
And when what's going on in your head while he's doing this?
I'm thinking that he could be like, because I mean, he's not giving me any expression. He's just got a poker face on. I'm thinking everything is fine.
It's fine, yeah.
Let's do this test. Let's do this. Let's do that. And wada. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, we sit. So he's like, okay, fine, get dressed. And then let's have a chat. So I get dressed. Then I go sit down by his table, and we start talking. So he says to me, upon examination, I've seen that you've got a blind end vagina, and you've got I don't see on the sonogram, I don't see a uterus, and I don't see ovaries. And he says the ovaries are very hard to see, can be very hard to see sometimes. But the uterus, you always see it. So I'm like,
okay,
in my mind, I'm like, it can't be though. I mean, the fact that you can't see them on the sonogram does not mean that they're
not there.
You know?
You just need to check properly.
You just need to check properly. Like, is there another person? So he explains to me what could be the reason, what could be the reason why. So the condition that he was telling me about was called Mullerian agenesis. So in the whole fetal development, then with the female reproductive system, how it happens is that 2/3 of your reproductive system develops from the inside outwards.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Another third of your reproductive system develops from the outside inwards.
Mm-hmm.
What essentially happens is that sometimes then the 1/3 can happen from the outside. Then that's what happens when a person has a blind end vagina. So where the labia and the everything in the clitoris forms from the outside and then goes in.
So what does the blind end vagina mean?
So essentially, where in a normal person, where you would have like the outer part of the vagina, the inner part of the vagina leading to the cervix,
yes,
and to the uterus.
To the uterus,
I
yes.
have the bottom third of the vagina, but there's no through.
The canal, that canal that's there.
There's no canals.
Okay.
A blocked end. So
Okay.
that's why it's a blind end vagina.
Oh,
so
okay.
They don't have a vagina at all. Whereas
there's some people who don't have a vagina at all.
At all, yes,
okay.
It can happen. They don't have a vagina at all. So literally, where there's supposed to be an opening, there's no opening.
Okay.
Uterus. So whereas in my end, I've got the bottom third of the vagina, but I don't have the top part of my vagina and then the cervix to the uterus. I don't have that.
Okay.
So it was just a blind end vagina. So he was describing that to me, and I was like, okay. And then he said, with Müllerian agenesis, it can happen that then the woman doesn't develop the uterus, and sometimes they don't develop the ovaries and the fallopian tubes and such, and that doesn't happen. So, shock of my life.
I can imagine.
And I'm just sitting there like, what just happened?
And you're alone here. You're not with your mom.
I'm alone. I mean, it was my mom is at work. I went on during varsity holidays, and I was by myself. So he's telling me all of this, but the thing for me, I think that also helps me understand is that I'm aware about this. You're not talking to like a person who's done maybe
clueless
with biology and everything. So I have an idea of what's happening. And then we went to, and then afterwards, so he says to me he'd like to run some other tests to really confirm if it's Müllerian agenesis. So he would like to test my hormone levels.
Wow.
I was like, so I went back. I remember even when we went back to varsity and I was reading up on Müllerian agenesis, I was like, okay, so I sort of understand. I remember I had one friend who was studying human physiology, and I just grabbed her book on anatomy and physiology while we were just sitting, and I was like reading on, so I just opened and I looked back, and then I looked at Müllerian agenesis and amenorrhea and everything. And meanwhile, nobody knows what's going on. It looks like I'm reading a normal book or just Jane. And I'm doing my own research on myself.
Yeah, for yourself.
And so he tells me all of this, and he says, let's do some blood tests. I'd just like to confirm your hormone levels, and let's see. I was like, okay, cool. Already you kind of get this fear, like, if we're going to test hormone levels, now you're going to enter into it.
Yeah, like, for what?
Guys. So then I went for my hormone tests, and he was like testing for hormones between estrogen and testosterone. And I remember the guy taking my blood work, and at this moment, like, your world is spinning.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I'm like, and shame, this guy was so professional who was taking my bloods. He didn't even ask me about why. He didn't ask me about this. It's just like, come, let's take your blood, making other random conversation.
Yeah, trying to keep your mind off what was going on.
It's so professional. Meanwhile, I'm Diagoa inside, you know? But even me, I'm trying to be like so poised and like hold my head up high and not
and
like
be a Miss South Africa. Girl.
So he takes my bloods, and then so all this time I was researching Müllerian agenesis. I had even joined support groups for Müllerian agenesis. And I remember there there was a support group that was organized by the Boston's Children's Hospital. So we're chatting with a lot of those people, and for a short time I had like kind of like a community way of people that I could talk to about this, because I mean it was a very lonely time. So after the first time when I found out, when he told me all of this, I remember the gynecologist is in Pretoria CBD. My mom works like at the close to the health campus by University of Pretoria. I think the distance is about over 5 to 6 kilometers. I remember I walked that distance.
Girl, I understand.
I was totally just like out of my mind. I was just like, I kept on saying that I'll get on a taxi, but I was so scared to get on a taxi and break down in the taxi. I was like, if I sit still, I'm probably gonna like break down in the taxi, and I don't want that to happen.
What was going through your mind? Like, what was going through your mind at that point?
It was absolute shock.
Yeah.
Like this kind, like it was like it was just shock. I was like, there's absolutely no way. There's absolutely no way. I'm like, this can't be happening. No, this can't be happening. And I just said, no, there is absolutely no way. And then so I got to my mom, I told her, and then she said, okay, let's talk about it when we get home. And I then got on the taxi, went home. And yeah, she was also just as shocked. And yeah, it was just, we were just really
emotional. I can imagine.
And yeah, so then my blood tests came back, and he asked me to come in. So he says to me, your blood tests came back and your testosterone is high. It's in the ranges of what a man's testosterone level would be.
Okay.
I go,
what's going on now?
I was just like, guys, there's a lot going on here. you
like,
know?
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, so now I'd like to send you for a karyotype, which is just checking for my sex chromosomes. And
did he explain, sorry, just to go back, did he explain like what does it mean that your testosterone is so high?
So he said to me, if my testosterone is high, it could be androgen insensitivity syndrome.
Okay.
So whereas I have XY6 chromosomes, but there is a mutation on the X chromosomes that produces the protein that detects the testosterone, so that during embryology, where I was supposed to develop, well, not me, but I mean, we normally you
the
would
cells.
The embryo would develop into a male fetus. There's a protein that's supposed to pick up the testosterone, but then in my case, then that protein had a mutation, so then it doesn't work. So then it's sort of, you develop into like a default gender, which pretty much is like the female, you know?
Yes.
So, and I mean, this is like using the language loosely. So that's what happens in that case. So it could be that I have this condition. He explained it to me, and even at that time I was like, I understand it, and there's so many things that could go differently with during embryology and that. And so I was like, okay. So we went and I got tested for, after my high testosterone level, I got my karyotype done. My karyotype was indeed 46XY. So meaning I've got like the karyotype of a male. A male's karyotype. So I remember, so at this time, so then he called us into the office.
How old are you at this time?
I'm 21.
Still 21.
21. Okay. So it happened this happened from October. The whole process started in October, and I think by November I had we had confirmed the diagnosis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so it was
That was heavy.
that was a very, and I mean, now I'm supposed to go back to school and finish the
Yeah.
year. I'm
Oh,
like, I'm supposed to go to school and finish the year. And then I remember on the Sunday that we found out where the diagnosis was confirmed, 46XY chromosomes, but obviously I'm physically female, so it was androgen insensitivity syndrome. And I remember that Monday I wore these gray jeans that I liked, and I wore this other pink dress shirt of mine.
mm,
And I remember that day, and so many people told me that I'm pretty, but I felt like such a fraud.
yeah.
I was like, oh, and people, like, even random strangers, hi, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. And I'm like,
Mm,
"Yeah." But I'm just like, if these people knew, I mean, I'm like, am I
what's
really
going
even aware?
on?
Am I even
So for
like,
someone who might watch, like, why would you feel like a fraud? Is it because now you found out that you have your 46XY chromosomes, which means you were supposed to be born a man?
yes? So I felt like this was a mistake. And the thing is, even in biological languages, I mean, a mutation is an error, and you kind of feel like an error, you know?
Sorry, my dogs are just barking.
No problem. So I was like, you, and especially like the language around it, where you say like it's an X mutation, you
Mm,
feel like you're a mutation, and you
you're
feel
a
like
mistake.
you're a mistake, like
Yeah.
this wasn't supposed to happen. Why is this happening? And you're just like, ugh, and it's just hard. Like it was terrible. So now, and I mean, I think from the time that I had found out, obviously the fact that I don't have a uterus and I don't have ovaries, the implication is I can't carry my own kids,
Mm,
and I can also not donate my eggs to be fertilized, even with surrogacy and that sort of stuff. So
yeah. How
that
was
pregnancy
that?
was, it was, I remember, especially during the time when it was Malarian agenesis, and I remember Juliana Rancic. I used to love watching Bill and Juliana.
Yeah, Bill and Juliana. Same. Yes.
And when they were struggling with conceiving, and then Juliana got breast cancer.
I remember.
Um, I remember that fertility struggle for her. I resonated with that so much, and I remember in the whole bargaining stages, I remember talking to God, and I was just saying, but why couldn't you just give me cancer? At least that is something that I could like get better from,
Yeah.
you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
understand.
why did it have, like, why I went through a whole why me stage. I mean,
Mm,
like, could you just have not given me a normal life?
life.
Why does it have to be me? I mean, this is such a big thing. And just like, why me? Why this? Why now?
Mm,
I was in a proper state, and I was just like, I can't believe you, And I'm like,
yeah.
for a very long time I was angry, and I honestly, and I mean, this for me, I think for me, in terms of my quality of life, I know that it would have probably been worse if I had cancer.
Yeah,
And
much worse.
at that moment, you're not thinking straight or whatever, but
But
it
I
was
think
just
it's
like,
also because, sorry to cut you, I think it's also because you grew up as a woman, you and your friends would sit and talk and have all these dreams of, having children. It's the most natural thing for you to feel, well, for some women to feel like you'd want to have
yeah.
children. So then you get told you can't, so it's understandable why you would feel that way.
I mean, I was proper bargaining. I was just like, at least with some things they can be like, you can go into remission.
Yeah,
There's
you
no
can't fix,
alternative.
yeah, you can't fix.
Like, there's nothing like, Emily, with the like, I would read up on uterine transplants. I would read up on women with Malarian agenesis who at least had their ovaries and could donate their own eggs. And I'm like, why not that?
Why
Why
not
did you have
that?
to go and make the most impossible of situations where there is absolutely no human hope, you know?
Mm.
And like it was like a proper I was just going through that a lot by myself, and I mean now I'm also expected to still, life carries on because here I am at school and life is supposed to carry on
And show up for yourself.
so, and show up for myself. So then that was it, and you just go through the whole stages now of the I remember there was a person that I was dating at the time, and I found out, and yeah, he didn't react in the way that I had hoped. That I mean, obviously you can't blame any person. This was a major thing, you know.
But it's not like
And I mean,
you
it's
did
like
it to
one to
yourself, so
one.
like, like
10 months into the relationship now, and you know, it's like, but why did you wait? And I'm like, but
hey, oh, dude, hey, you know what, men, honestly, like, but
but
let's
the thing
not
is,
go down that road.
not go down that road.
Like,
But you know what? I think, but the other thing for me, I think I've learned to be more empathetic towards him and allow him the space to. He was also mosting, and you know, like when a person has their heart set on, oh no, get married, have kids, and as if any of those things happen easily, which they
no, they
don't.
don't.
But it's you kind of have your what you hope for, and I mean, doesn't mean that you'll always get it as easy as you would hope it for it to be. But
Not
so
being
yeah,
able to have children as a woman doesn't take away from the fact that you are still a woman. You are great, like you are a great partner, you know. So I mean, yeah, anyways, yeah. Like, don't get me started.
so yeah, but I mean, then as a we broke up because of some other issues, but I also think that was a contributing factor. Because I think some of the things you know, like when you kind of feel like there's something to fight for in this relationship, you kind of fight for. But I mean,
Yeah,
at that time, it's when everything else is just pointing and just like, eh,
yeah,
and it's like, meh,
yeah, yeah.
so we broke up, and I think one of my biggest fears also was dating and finding, one, the fact that you can't have kids, but two, also having male sex chromosomes and also having underdeveloped testes in your body. That for me was like a kind of a mind
Oh
F,
yeah.
you know.
How did they find
To
that out? Like, what did they find it out when you did the second test, when they
so
told you got? Mm-hmm.
yes, because of the high testosterone, the only way that I could have it is if I had underdeveloped testes in my body.
Wait, are they
Because
inside where you're supposed to have your ovaries?
yes.
Okay. Did they sorry, you don't have to
Go ahead.
answer if this is too, if it's too personal, but did they remove them? Because I watched, just for research for today, I watched another young lady who had said that her experience was similar to yours, but Yena, she had both uh underdeveloped testes and a fallopian tube and a uterus inside, and they told her to, yes, they told her to like she had to remove them because then they'd have to be cancerous. So in your case, like, what did they do? Did they remove them, or are they still inside of you?
So I was advised to have them removed, and we don't know the probability of them developing into cancer, but they said there is a chance that they could cause cancer, and I was like, okay, it's fine, we can remove them. So, but as a result, then I would have to go into hormone therapy
Okay.
because just to keep my hormones balanced, because I would essentially become like a woman that's on menopause.
Oh,
So
okay.
I remember, I remember even before I
Yo.
found out, I would get hot flashes.
Are you
Like I would,
serious?
yes, I would get hot
Guys,
flashes.
no.
But now the thing is, because I mean, at the time I'm young, I don't understand what's going on. I remember I would just get this wave of heat over me, and I would start like sweating. And I remember my hands and feet still sweat, but they don't sweat as much as they used to when I was growing up. But they would sweat so much. And I mean, even when it's hot or even when it's cold, the worst was when it's cold, because you're trying to understand, like, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah, what's going on?
Girl, then I had this, and I would just I would get hot flushes. But the thing is, now as a result, I also had to be put on hormone replacement therapy, and that was something after my surgery. So I was put on estrogen, and that helps. And also when I wasn't taking when there would be months when I wouldn't take the estrogen, I would also then just get hot flushes. So I'd
Were there
be proper
were there any side effects from taking the estrogen, or
what really helped, what I noticed was my boobs got really big. My boobs grew at the time. And for me, I think that was like also a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
And it's funny also, it's quite of an inside joke between the AIS girls, or the people that identify as girls, would be that even before the whole thing, a lot of people would call them like, they'd say we have really beautiful boobs. Like, they would just be round and perky. And I don't know, like, if ever there is like any genetic thing, but I don't think I've even met an AIS person with that doesn't have like nice
Amazing
boobs, or like
boobs.
they love their boobs, but it was just a thing,
Yeah.
So it was like they have even my one friend who also came out, and she was saying that her girlfriend says, like, listen, your boobs are insane. You've got the most beautiful boobs, like they're round, they're perky,
They're perky.
So then when I went on hormone therapy, and I think also with just growing up, and also just age, and also just gaining weight, because like, when I look at myself when I started varsity and now, I mean, I'm not the same. I mean, when I was in varsity, I think I was like even 48, 47 kilograms, and now I'm like a 60. But I mean, I'm still kind of quite skinny, but I mean, you see how you carry the weight. So just like ukuka, like with age,
it does add a little bit.
Add a little bit of. So, but I mean, even with my boobs, I just look at my boobs, I'm like, I got pretty boobs, At least for me, that was something. I was just like, look, at least I've got pretty boobs.
At least I've got pretty boobs. But like, did you ever, wow, Sharon, like, so when okay, there's so much that's going through my mind.
Okay, let's start with the first thought.
When you found out, and you said, Wuti, you felt like you were a fraud, like you felt like you weren't really a woman. Like, for you, did you feel like being a woman meant you had to have a uterus, or is it specifically because of the, I don't like the word mutation, because you said it makes you feel like it was a mistake. Is it because of the cell mutation that happened when you were an embryo?
I think for me, I mean, I think for me, not really feeling like a woman it went deeper than not having kids. Because I think I mean, it was not, I would not have been the first person that I would have known who wouldn't be able to conceive naturally, or wouldn't be able to conceive. So for me, I didn't attach being a woman to having kids, or being able to have kids. I think for me, the one thing that I really struggled with was having the XY chromosomes, and also the testes. Because I mean, I think I even struggled for a very long time to call them testes, because I would just call them underdeveloped gonads, and gonads is like the general term for both ovaries and testes, because before they differentiate into either testes or what is this, ovaries, they are called gonads.
Gonads.
So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So at
So
that,
even
Yeah, sorry.
Even with the surgery, it's called a gonadectomy, where you remove either the testes or the
The female, yes, the ovaries.
yeah.
And then did you ever make research within your family if there was someone who who has also been born in intersex? Is it genetic, or is it just happens as a miracle?
So because it's an XY chromosome, it's genetic, because it's on the mutation is on the XY, on the X chromosomes. You get it. It's passed down from the mother.
Okay.
Yes. So but I mean, oftentimes, because I mean it's what is this, it's a mother, then obviously you'd see it in the family. And obviously, because I can't speak for anyone in my family, and out of just respect, I only talk about myself, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. Okay.
And but when you look at it, because then if you're male, you always get your Y chromosome from your father, and then
Yes,
your X chromosome from your mother.
your mom.
So it's transmitted through the mother's side of the family.
Okay. And I don't know, how did there's so much that's going through my mind. I'm sorry. Do you feel like, because when I was doing research on intersex individuals, I found out that there's some people who were born with both sexual reproduction organs, and well, I also guess then hormones, and they identify themselves as both, right? And you obviously identify yourself as female. Do you think that within our education system, they need to obviously change how they teach us about the anatomy of the body? Because I also studied biology, but just in high school. So I just know like the normal vagina, penis, testes, like just the generic, like, so how do you feel about the education around it, especially amongst like children?
I think it's, you realize, I think I realized in varsity that when a person ends up as typically female or typically male, there's so many things that happened in between. It's not just a simple 1+1 is 2. There's so many factors in that whole thing, where there's the genetics with the XY chromosomes and the XX chromosomes. There's a physiological level. There's a hormonal level where the development is influenced by hormones. And hence, in my case, where it was supposed to be, well, not really supposed to, but I mean, typically what would happen is that with an XY individual, you would have the testosterone that's then being detected, and then you end up having a male fetus. In this instance, then because I couldn't detect my body couldn't detect the testosterone, hence I developed into a female. It's just there are so many things, and I mean, you realize that it's not just a simple, oh, because you're XY you'll be male, because you're XX you'll be female. It happens so many different ways. And there's also, I think there's also a very different, I think for me personally, the whole experience taught me to be more empathetic to gay and lesbian and transgender people. Whereas even if a person like that in their body doesn't feel like that they are in the right body, and I mean, I see it in some people who are intersex and have different conditions. Let's say they are born with ambiguous genitalia. How do you choose?
That's true.
How do you choose?
That's true.
And yet you can do a hormone test and then it says, oh no, the female hormones are higher than the male hormones. But I mean, they're still there. And And hence I'm so against, like, with intersex surgeries at birth, where the decision is not even given to the child.
The child, yeah.
Surgery is done on their behalf, and then they grow up, and then let's say you're raised as a boy, but you've always felt like you identify as female.
Yeah.
So for me, I was more empathetic, where you would think that, oh no, sexuality is this and that, and this is how it is, and whatever, and especially religion has a big play on it. Is this, but how do you explain it? So I mean, my biggest question was like, okay, fine. Here we are. Here's a person who was born like this.
What do you say?
How are they supposed to choose, and who chooses?
It's interesting that you say that, and especially if you mention religion. And the reason why I say that is because, well, I come from a very like staunch Christian family. And girl. So like I always knew that the one thing that my grandfather used to say, because my grandfather was a pastor, and he always used to say that when it comes to specifically gay or lesbian, he would say that the Bible does say that there are people who are just, that God says he made them that way, you know. So I grew up knowing that, okay, there are people that are going to be either gay or lesbian because they were just born that way, you know. But I then feel like maybe in the church we don't speak about that so much, because like you said, how do I come as Usihle, a cis woman, right? Heterosexual cis woman, and I say, let's say you don't identify as female. Let's say you identified as male, and I come to you and I say, but how do you identify as male? Because when I look at you, you look like a female. Do you understand what I'm saying? And you were born that way. How do I then come and question how you feel? Because like you said, it's not as black and white as society has made it seem.
Gender is not
Mm.
Gender as a whole is not black and white, because we were taught to raise, we were taught to be, to think, we were raised to be taught to think that there's a man and there's a woman. And there's so many things in between. And whether you believe it or not, people exist that show you exactly that. Because I think as humans evolve, we become more educated and more knowledgeable, that we learn so much more. I mean, I look at how, even with androgen insensitivity syndrome, for the names that it was called to what it is now, I mean, through science and through knowing exactly what it is that happens, we've become more educated, and it's no longer called testicular feminization or hermaphroditism, or, because I mean those are the previous names, and I mean at the time they were appropriate because those are the names that they thought.
Yeah, but calling someone a hermaphrodite, it's offensive.
At the time it was a normal thing, you know. But now it's offensive, and I mean we learn so much more, and even in advances in science, you do this and you know so much more and you learn this. And it's I think for me that taught me to be more empathetic to people, to everybody around sexual orientation and gender identification, and just people. And I think for me the biggest thing for me is that at the start and the beginning of the day, you are human, and that's the most important.
Human, and you're human. And I wanted
before anything else,
sorry to cut you. I wanted to ask you, why did this question slip my mind? So I wanted to find out now, when you date, right? Oh no, I just remembered the actual question, and then I'll ask this one. So in African tradition, you know that when you are not born in quote unquote the normal way, right? People always think Gucci, it's either izinto zabantu, or or ukuthakatha, or like witchcraft, right? What is the one thing that you wish that we could educate people, especially amongst us Africans? Because I read somewhere that there's 3% of children born as intersex, and there are 30 different types of intersexes in the world. I think, I don't know, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Conditions, sorry, 30 types of intersex conditions, right?
Or rather
Variations. Yes.
Conditions imply it's a disease.
Is a disease, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. There's 30 types of variations of intersex, right? And then now bringing in the African tradition factor. What would you like to say with regards to that? Because, for example, if you were born in a deep rural area, they would have said the reason why you're not going on your period is izinto zabantu.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me is one, education. And because when we know better, we hopefully do better, or the chances of us doing better are higher. And also, especially to the person going through this, or the parent or family member of the person doing this, it's that it's not your fault. You didn't do anything, you didn't. And oh no, because I did this, now my child is like this. No, it's nobody's fault.
It's not your fault. Yeah.
These things happen. Just like how a person is born with blue eyes or red hair, or a person is born with an attached earlobe. This is one of the things that happens. It's just sad that it doesn't. And I always say, I think the stats would even be higher because these are reported cases, right? So I think the stats would be somewhat higher. And and for me, it's always a case, Yahore, they shouldn't even be. So just like how a person is either born a man or a woman, you don't go to the doctor to confirm that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you don't.
It should be just like that to a case, Yahore, unless the person wants to find out, that they can then go and find out.
And then
they shouldn't any pressure to know the reasons. There shouldn't be any pressure to be like, I mean, this is a normal part of life that happens,
Yeah, that's true.
And from a traditional, and I mean, this is not new as well. This is not new. This has been happening for years. So it's just an issue of, I think, especially as Black people, we need to know better.
Yeah, we do. And we need to educate. And I think back to then dating, is it difficult for you to meet someone and tell them that, oh, I was born with AIS? Because for me personally, right, I personally don't believe in anyone having to come out. Even the friends that I have that are gay, they've never said to me, Sihle, I'm gay, because I've never had to come out to the world and say, hi world, I'm straight, So I always try to refer things the way that I do it. So if I don't have to come out, then I don't expect someone else to come out to me about their sexuality. That's your business. Yeah. So with dating, how for you, how is it?
It's been a ride, hey? And also because I think men are just a pandemic. So
oh yeah.
So I've had my fair share of stories, right? So I've met so I mean, like I told you, I was dating someone at the time, and then even after that, I was dating someone I dated someone else at the time. And I remember my prayer was like, Lord, please just give me somebody that will love me for me, and who doesn't want anything else but wants me for me. and this thing doesn't matter and everything. And I remember when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I said, okay, before I give you my answer, I have something to tell you. And I told him everything, and we had our crying session, and he literally said those words verbatim. Oh, I want you for you, I love you for you, and oh my gosh. So for me, Hashem, Karawa,
Yasha.
my body has, I was like, Tata, bad girl. I was like, listen, Barna. There we go.
Yes.
A few minutes later, he's like, what did you mean?
What? Yeah. Like,
So,
am I
so
shocked? No.
So, but shame, like, and also the other thing is that he's not a. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, making a joke about it, saying when I pandemic. But he's honestly, he's not a terrible human being that I mean I could be like, oh, he's trash. No. I mean, it was a valid thing, but sometimes I honestly wish that people could ask and I mean, you will never ever answer all the questions and everything. And I've always said to people, listen, I'm a big girl. I've known, especially with people that, I mean, like when there are people that you date, but you really know that there's no potential line up. So you're just like,
Yeah.
this is
You're
just,
just going with the ride.
sometimes I don't even bother like
Yeah.
telling those people. It's like, whatever, whatever happens, happens.
Happens,
But then
yes.
those relationships where you really put yourself out there and you become vulnerable and you really see this person as a person that you see yourself in the future. I prefer to tell people early on, just from the past experiences that I've had. But I also don't want to. I think it's another way of protecting myself, where I don't want to get too attached to a person that might later not be able to deal with this. And is the one thing that I always say is the fact that this is having kids is a big thing. Having kids is a big thing. And whether you will have those kids or not is a different story. But
Yeah.
wanting kids is a big thing. And especially having your own kids, because then came to the point where I've had to discuss this with two people. I've had to discuss this with two people about, okay, fine. How about surrogacy with an egg donor, but my sperm? And I'm like, no,
No.
that for me hurts me even more. The fact that one, I couldn't even give an egg to this baby, and I can't carry it. Whereas I feel like that's more your child than our
Than
child.
yours. Yeah.
So then I'm like, that for me hurts. That for me hurts. And I don't think I would be able to do that. And I remember I went through a whole I want to adopt phase. I went through a whole I only dated dads phase. So I dated dads, people that already
Really
had.
had
Yeah, because
children. Yeah.
it was also just easier. And I mean, if ever they have like one or two kids, they don't want any more kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It just makes
it's a
it
much it was
easier.
it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, so I dated kids, and then you meet the guy who's ready to be married, and who really wants kids. I remember the one time it was so awkward. I had not told him yet, and he said, "Sure, my baby, like our kids are gonna be beautiful, hey?" And I was like,
Uh,
"This thing doesn't
we
work."
can we can laugh about it now, but it's sad. I think it's for me. It's like when you're saying this, I think of you more. Screw the guy. I think of you more, and not because men are the way that they are, but because just from our conversation, what I'm picking up is that you would have loved to have children, your own children, your
I
own
think
biological children.
I think and funny enough that you say that, because I think after this whole experience and everything, and the way that I'm living my life and my life is panning out, and I've had to have really serious talks with myself about whether I do want kids or not. Because now I have to actively choose. I'm not following and not that anyone else is following a path that was put before them, but now I'm having to be more deliberate about my choices and my desires
choices.
in life. Because especially when it comes to having kids, I have to really want kids now, where I say, okay, fine, am I going to adopt? Am I going to have? I've had to have this conversation with myself. And I actually realized, I was like, I don't think my life would be any less fulfilling if I didn't have kids. And for me, I like when I think about myself and my future in my life, do I see kids? Honestly, no.
Okay.
And for me, so it's not a more than anything, I think I just can't wait to get married and meet the love of my
And meet
life
the
and
love of your life. Yeah.
travel and just like exist and go and just live life and have fun. And
Yeah.
but then as a result of that, I've also had to think about, okay, fine, meeting a person who has kids already. Um, what does that look like? And if I say I don't want to be a parent, but this guy comes with kids, what does that look like for
For
me?
you.
And if let's say the mother is no longer, what does that look like?
Yeah,
You
because
know?
that is basically like adopting,
Yes.
you
And
know.
the but the thing is then, and I mean I can't now expect to date a guy with kids, but I say no, the kids should live with their mother.
Mm.
You know,
Njani.
if
Mm.
for whatever reason the kid lives with their father and I'm coming into their lives, I need to. And the whole dynamics obviously can be discussed, whether do you assume the mother role, the stepmother role, or do you just assume as the my dad's wife type of thing, but she's not my mother or whatever,
Mm.
or that sort of stuff. So there's a whole lot of conversations, and I think for me it's trying to look. And I would say in terms of my ideal part, for me, children are not a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
Children are not a deal breaker. But obviously, with a person that who still wants more kids, that's another discussion that we need to have. But for me, also, it's my like if I had my way, I'd have a guy who doesn't have kids, who doesn't want kids.
Mm. That's it.
Then
And you guys live
then
happily ever after and travel the world. Yes.
then 10, 20 years later, if we like, Mara baby, you know, Mara, it would be nice to have like a little human running
Yeah.
around. Then we can both change our minds and have that discussion then. But I think for me, and the one thing that I've also realized, and that's also the other thing that I'm also very empathetic towards the men that I meet and talking to them about this is I mean, I always say, like, look, my guy, I've known this now for, it's going to be what, 9 years since I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with this.
Mm.
I've gone through everything.
Every emotion. Yes.
I'm okay. I'll be okay. So please don't, if you cannot handle this, don't try to be the hero. Don't try to be Buck Spencer now. What you feel for me is a totally different story. But because you know what? No, basically you laugh. But you know what they try to do? Some
What?
of them try to be the savior,
And do
and they
what?
step into the savior. I can do this. I love you. I want to be with you. Yes, ma Khumalo. I no.
Ah,
Like
no,
then,
Zulu men. What did I tell you about Zulu men? I love Zulu people.
ma Khumalo. No, it's not just Zulu girl.
I know, I
It's
know.
reality.
Yes.
But the thing is, for me, I'm like, listen, you don't have to now come and assume this. You are saving me. You are loving me. You are. It's a big thing, guys.
It
It's
is.
a big.
It is. It really is.
If I'm going if I'm going to select a partner based on whatever criteria I use to choose to be with somebody, having kids should be one,
Mm. And
because I think the
I think, sorry to cut you. I think now, like, our society almost bashes people who upfront say, like, I want to have children, and if you don't, then I can't be with you. Then you'll have Twitter say, you can't force people to want to have children if they don't want to. But for some people, it's important. You understand what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with Sharon. It's just what like that person wants for themselves.
Guys, if like I don't want to get married to get divorced. And I also don't want to be, I don't want to be in a relationship where I resent somebody or someone resents me. And I've been in a situation where I was ready to get in talks. I mean, this was recent where I was like, listen, I really love this person and I know this person wants to have kids. And we spoke about the whole kids thing and I realized how much kids meant to him. And I thought to myself, maybe this is something worth exploring if it means being with the person that you love.
You love.
But in the back of my mind, more than anything, I was not being true to myself. And that would have backfired. Because I also don't want to be in a situation where, yes, we go ahead, we have this child through surrogacy and an egg donor, and I can't connect with this child.
And then what?
Because when you signed the contract and everything was being done, it was the both of you. It was the both of you.
Yeah.
It was under the circumstances that you guys are together and then you guys are husband and wife and this person wants to be happy. And you just it's and also the thing is then why if I were to bring in a child into the world, I would want to bring the child into a space where they are loved and they are welcomed and they are wanted. You know, I don't ever I think the choice of having children should definitely be one of those choices that is really thought out, because
right.
it's a very deep it's not an easy decision because this is life. You're not buying a hand.
No.
Or
Yeah.
this is life.
It's
that you
life.
are.
If let's say because I listened to this interview, I'll send you the link. It's some international show. I think it's Megan Kelly. And she had interviewed this doctor who had performed a surgery on a trans woman, and they had taken out a uterus and I think fallopian tubes, I'm not sure, but a uterus, and put them into this trans woman, and they could only be in her body for I think 4 years or 5 years. And I'm not sure that they could produce their own eggs, right? And they had children gay with their partners, right? If there was an option like that here in South Africa, I know that you've said you don't see your life without children, but if they were, let's say you meet someone else that you really love and they really want to have children and you guys are now married, right? And he's like, listen, babe, I really want a child. Would you be open to that?
I where I trying transplants and everything. I was there, and for me, I was like, another option that I would want. No, but I don't want to at the moment. No, and I'm not saying I'll feel like this. I'm only 30 now. I'm not saying that I'll feel like this at 35, 40, 45. I might have a change of heart when, let's say, I've achieved all my dreams and ambitions that I really thought that I wanted to do, and I still feel like, you know what, I actually feel like I have some love to give, and hence I strongly, firmly believe. And here's my thing: is that I think that I can love somebody and still not be with them. I mean, there's quite a few people because of the fundamentals of what we don't believe. I mean, of what we believe in.
Yes.
And for me, the one thing that I do know is that having kids is very important. And I want I want to be with somebody who's in wholehearted. And I mean, I get that. Look, we can argue about whether do we live in Stain City or do we live in Saddlebrook or do we live in
Yeah,
Sandhurst.
but that's neither here nor there.
Those are immaterial things. If you
Yes,
really like, then just buy places in both and then spend Monday to Wednesday there, Thursday
and
to
there,
Friday there.
exactly.
Those are but to some people, if ever your man says, babes, now I want to live in KZN and I work in KZN, and I'm
Mm,
like, listen, I want to be in Joburg. Is Joburg more important than the other? If it is, and guys, let's normalize that being, if ever something is really that important to you, just because you're choosing it over a person, every in every decision you make trade-offs, right?
mm,
So if I choose to there's something that you're forsaking, like just like opportunity cost. When you choose something, you're forsaking something else that you're not choosing.
yes.
And it's a normal thing, but I think it has to be worth it. If I do meet the person who I absolutely love, and they say, okay, fine, let's go stay in KZN, and I really wanted to be in Joburg, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, love will
Yes.
make you do things. I never saw myself in KZN
Yeah.
where I am in KZN. It's something completely different. It's like, can I do what I still want to do and I still be fulfilled where I am?
Mm,
But what I'm saying, would you feel if you didn't have kids at all? Would you still be okay?
yeah, yeah. I think the
So you
one
kind of
thing that you've taught me just from our conversation is life is really, like we said, it's really not as black and white as what we're raised to believe. Hey, and I also think that God isn't as black and white as we actually think either, because if the Bible says, and if God says we are made in his image, um there's an intersex person like Sharon, there's another intersex person who identifies as both male and female, you know, and they were made by God. So if they were made by God and God says that we're made in his image, then why am I saying that they could never be a gay or a lesbian or a trans man or woman or an intersex? Because if God allowed that mutation to happen, he knew. It's not like he didn't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
you didn't, on the production line, you didn't skip the quality check, you know?
Exactly. Like exactly.
Away. He's
Exactly. You
away.
know? And I think these are the discussions we need to have. Like we need to have in the church. I think such discussions also need to be had.
Where he says, I know the number of hairs on your head. I knew you before you were even conceived.
Like,
So now the
babes,
person who's born yesterday is coming to tell you otherwise, to say
babes,
this is wrong. Stop teaching.
babes.
I'm just like,
Exactly. So I think I say that to
and he
say,
goes a long
hey,
way.
yeah, I say that to say that not having children, it really isn't a big deal. Uh because if you were born the way that you were born, you know, I personally don't think that, and I'm happy you at that space where you shouldn't ever feel like you are pressured to have children or to do something that is outside of how God made you, you know, because a man doesn't ever feel like, yeah, Mina, I want to go and carry a child because their body is made that way. You know, they're not go, you know, so now the way that you were made, that God made you, it's just that way, and it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if God can drop my Adonis out of the sky, I would really appreciate that. I'm
Child,
so tired of holding interviews. I'm just like, another one.
I can't imagine. And they're so tiring. Woo. They're so tiring. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Oh, one last question. When you entered Miss SA, why didn't you share this, like your story, or did you not feel ready?
Oh, I wasn't ready.
Okay.
I wasn't ready, but I think, and I mean, you've been in Miss SA when the personal investigator then comes in and then they say, is there anything that we should know? Yo, I
And
was
your
like,
heart beats like, eh? What did I
I was,
do?
my thing, I think, and I mean, for me, even though it was not public knowledge, the judges knew.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not public knowledge, but the judges knew. So I think for me, I wanted to control the narrative. Even when I told them, I
Mm,
wanted to control the narrative because I know how it comes out, and especially because it's a female it's a competition based on the basis that you have to be a female entrant,
mm,
um, which was a bit of like a shaky water where you kind of like scared of how it would be perceived. And because the one thing that I didn't want to happen was like, I'm like, I know there are people in my past who know, and I mean, I know that they're not going to be malicious
mm.
and
Break the
call
story.
Sunday whoever, but the one thing that I wanted to do was control the narrative.
Mm.
But I will say that I was very scared of being found out, because then if I'm not the one who's saying this, people always hear left.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay, wow. I mean, I think for me personally, I appreciate the fact that you agreed to speak about it with me, because I briefly read about it. I think you had it on, was it a newspaper? I forgot which newspaper it was on. Right after, like maybe a few months after you won Miss Sundowns. And I was like,
Yes.
wow, oh Sharon, but I didn't look at you differently, and I didn't think like, are you're not a woman, or not woman enough. Like I never looked at it that way. So I think it's quite interesting that at some point you felt like maybe you're a fraud, and I'm happy that you don't feel that way anyway, child, because you are just not a you're like, no, you're like, you're not. But like, thank you so much though for taking the time out to even educate me and educate more people out there who are going to watch this interview. Yeah.
My absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed this.
And if there's anything else that you would want to like mention, or that you want people to know, whether it's about yourself or even about like AIS, you can just mention it before we end the interview.
I think for me, the biggest thing is, to a person that might be going through a similar situation or they might relate to my story, is especially when you're going through it, because you are one out of 22,000 or however many the stats are now, is
Mm,
feel like you're alone. And the one thing that I want to reiterate is that you're not alone. And I think the biggest thing is, and this goes beyond AIS, intersex, or everything, normal is a lie.
mm,
There's no such thing as normal. It's just I mean, I remember even on one of my blogs, I talked about like the normal distribution. It just so happens that more than not, people fall into certain categories, and even categories shouldn't even be happening. And hence, for me, the one thing that I do strongly believe is that more than anything, you're human.
mm.
And to parents, and especially mothers, because then you read about, no, this gene is passed through the mother. It's that it's not your fault.
Yeah,
It is also, parents sometimes can have the grief to be like, oh no, it's my
it's my
fault,
fault.
and I
Yeah,
did this. Oh, I had the child too late. I had the child too young. It's not your fault. It's not
yeah.
anybody's fault. And the person who's going through this, you're not a mistake. And if you believe in God, God knew exactly what He was doing. Sometimes we may not understand it, and you also grapple with it from time to time. But He knew what He was doing, and um, man, you're a human being who deserves love and deserves to be,
Mm.
and you are like, you can be those things. Yeah.
And like you said, you deserve love, you deserve happiness, you deserve all the good things in life that everyone has. And I'm happy that because when I read about other people who were intersex, a lot of them felt like they were used as medical guinea pigs.
Yeah.
um, I'm I'm happy that you didn't go through that experience, and I hope that we can have more of such conversations openly, so that we know that, there's the sun rises, like my friend says, the sun rises and the sun sets, but no one ever talks about that time just before the sun sets, and that's where the gray area is, and we need to speak about that more, you know. Yeah. Well, thank you, Sharon.